Yeah, so this is just a verse of homage to Shakyamuni Buddha. Homage, see, that's not it. Compelled by great compassion, you taught the sacred Dharma. To dispel all wrong views, to you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. Do not commit any unwholesome actions. Engage in perfect wholesome actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. And then we can make a short mandala offering. It's a way of creating some merit. This ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all transmigratory beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Rana Mandala Kaniratayami. And then we'll skip down to the refuge and Bodhichitta prayer. Um, yeah, so again, it's mainly for Buddhists. This is a Buddhist practice, right? So if you don't feel comfortable reciting it, of course, there's no compulsion to do so. But in Buddhism, this is, yeah, especially Mahayana Buddhism, this is a typical way of remembering, yeah, our faith in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and requesting their guidance, and also remembering our aspiration, actually what we're going to speak about tonight, our aspiration to become enlightened in order to benefit all sentient beings. In the last two lines, it speaks about that. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my two collections of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my two collections of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my two collections of explaining the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. So that last two lines, yeah, the first two lines, the first is I take refuge. So yeah, going for refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha, which was explained in one of the earlier modules of this course. And then in Buddhism, who we take refuge in the teacher, the Buddha, and then what he taught, the Dharma, and then the spiritual community that upholds his teachings in the world, the Sangha. Um, And then the last two lines are more related to what we're going to speak about tonight, this attitude of bodhicitta. So there it says, by my two collections of listening to the Dharma, yeah, I won't explain, but anyway, it's saying by whatever positive energy, by whatever merit and wisdom that I accumulate through this activity. In this case, the activity is, I'm explaining and you're listening mainly. So by whatever positivity we create through that, then it's like a dedication. May I become a Buddha. May I become fully enlightened. And why? Should I become fully enlightened? In order to benefit transmigratory beings. So this is a quite strange term, transmigratory beings. Usually you'd probably think transmigratory birds or something like that, right? Or whales, some animals that migrate, or these days like nomads, I guess, people in the van life or something that migrate around. But here, transmigratory beings, it's a bit funky translation for a term that's referring to the Buddhist view that all sentient beings, like us human beings, we're born as into this human life, and then we die. But then when we die, we take rebirth again. We're born into some other type of existence, maybe human again, or maybe animal or something else, and then again live that life, and then die and take rebirth. So that process of transmigrating from one life, migrating from one life to another, from one type of existence to another, again and again, is samsara, right? Suffering of samsara. So why become enlightened? In order to free, myself and others from that kind of suffering process of taking rebirth again and again through the force of karma. Yeah. So okay. So then, what are we going to do tonight? Let's see. First, I want to stop looking at myself. This is, yeah, welcome again. This is to the first session of this module in this course that we're teaching. So I know many of you maybe are just here for one session tonight, so it's not so relevant, but this is especially for those, who have been participating in the course. So this course is called Discovering Buddhism. It's been going on for, I don't know, a year or so, something, year and a half, I think. Yeah, before Leah and Mai's time. that's been happening. So there's been some other teachers. I think two or three or four other teachers have taught different modules. This is the 10th module out of 14 in this course. Um, and yeah, so this is my first time coming to the center here in a long time, and my first session teaching in this module. So I'll be teaching three modules, right? So this one on bodhicitta, and then the next module on mind training, basically. What is it called? Transforming problems. Yeah, taking problems or taking suffering into the path, transforming problems. And then the next module on the wisdom of emptiness. So yeah, all quite rich and juicy topics. Um, yeah, so that'll, I don't know, I think it's six sessions each module, pretty much. So about 7 or 8 weeks per module. So that'll take us about 4.5 months, 4.5, 5 months. Yeah. So welcome for the ride. No. Um, yeah. But of course, for those who you're just here for this session tonight, there's no problem. And yeah, whatever questions you have, then please feel free to answer. Um, I mean, sorry, I'll answer. You feel free to ask. Uh-huh. Um, yeah. Okay. So this module again is on bodhicitta. Bodhicitta, or sometimes it's called the awakening mind or the enlightened mind or the aspiration for enlightenment. Bodhicitta is a Sanskrit term, right? Where bodhi means enlightenment and chitta means mind, right? So it means like the mind aspiring to achieve full enlightenment. And of course, in Mahayana Buddhism, Buddhism in general, especially Mahayana Buddhism, then the highest, what's considered the highest goal that one can achieve, the highest thing one can aim for as a practitioner is a state of full enlightenment, right? There's the idea that every sentient being, just by virtue of having a mind, then because the mind is by nature clear, its nature is to be pure and luminous and to know objects, and its capacity to know is infinite, and also therefore the capacity to know other sentient beings is infinite, and the capacity to care about other sentient beings is infinite. And so that aspect of wisdom, knowing phenomena, and also the aspect of caring, having compassion and loving kindness, caring about others is also infinite. So both of those can be increased through practice, and that's kind of the main point of Buddhist practice is to increase wisdom and increase caring about yourself in a healthy way and caring about others. Um, and so, yeah, this attitude of bodhicitta is not the wisdom side. It's called the method side. It's the side of caring about others. And it's considered sort of the highest form of caring about others is not only wishing that, myself and others be free from suffering or wishing myself and others have happiness, but also taking on a sense of personal responsibility, thinking what can I actually do? Um, how can I grow as a person, develop as a person, become more mature and more wise, more energetic, more skillful, develop all different kind of capacities in order to use my life to benefit others. And so and what's the highest degree of development I can aspire to and aim for so that I can be of greater benefit to others. And so, of course, in Buddhism, the kind of degree of development is in short, the elimination as a person, the elimination of all faults, and the fuller development of all positive qualities, and so which is enlightenment, right? Full enlightenment. So bodhicitta, in short, is the aspiration to achieve enlightenment in order to be of the greatest benefit to the world. So that's what we're talking about today, and for the next 6 sessions, right? For the next 6 weeks. Today, yeah, I forgot how I organized it, but basically, main thing is we'll focus on the definition, exactly what is bodhicitta. So I'll fill in some more description in addition to what I just explained. And then, yeah, we'll end with some very inspiring quotations from different Buddhist masters. And we'll try to fit in some, whatever time for questions and answers and a little meditation, right? So we have a lot to do in our hour left. Um, and so I'll go to this PowerPoint slides that I prepared. So I think I covered all that. And yeah, for those especially who are going to be or in the course, then just to explain. Oops. Okay. So in the what we'll cover in the 6 sessions to come. The first, the definition and the benefits of bodhicitta. That's today. And then next week, preparing the ground by equanimity means generating a sense of equal concern for all without bias towards those we like and against those we dislike. So trying to generate equal concern for all. And then there's two different methods for generating bodhicitta. One is the sevenfold cause and effect method. And then the other is, so we'll cover that in one session. And then the other is the method of equalizing and exchanging self with others. And then the 5th session will cover, yeah, how to combine those two methods into one sort of a kind of practice of meditation. And then in the 6th, considering, yeah, bodhisattva vows. And then once one generates the attitude of bodhicitta, then what's kind of the path of practice? What do you do? Yeah. So there's that term bodhicitta there. Oops, what am I not doing? So yeah, the definition. So when we begin to define bodhicitta, oh good, that doesn't show up, but this does. There's so bodhicitta is an attitude in our mind. So in in terms of we have different types of minds, different types of consciousness. Like for example, when we look at something with our eyes, we have an eye consciousness that experiences the visual phenomena in the environment around us. When we listen with our ears, or even when we're not listening, sound appears to our ears, and we develop some awareness of sound. So that's sound consciousness. Similarly, we have a nose, tongue, and then body sense consciousness. So bodhicitta, though, is not any of those. None of those consciousness can be developed as bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is rather mental. It's a mental consciousness. So if we remember something, if we think about, we close our eyes and remember something that happened, earlier today or in the past, that's a clear example of a mental consciousness. Whatever we're remembering, it's not appearing to our eyes, ears, nose, or body. It's only appearing to our mind, our mental consciousness. Or when we think about the future, when we make judgments, oh, this is good, this is bad, when we do, rational thinking, and even when we imagine, when we dream at night, that's all the mental consciousness. So generally in meditation, it's mainly we're working with the mental consciousness, not sense consciousness. So bodhicitta, yeah, is a type of mental consciousness and a type of attitude we develop. But one way to describe bodhicitta, a kind of simple way, is that it's an attitude that possesses two aspirations, right? So there's a causal aspiration, which is great compassion, and a companion aspiration, which is the aspiration for enlightenment. So yeah, so main thing is, as I already began to explain, then bodhicitta is this wish that may I become fully enlightened, or a more simpler and secular way to say that is like, may I achieve kind of the highest, my greatest potential. May I fulfill my highest possible potential as a person, as a human being. Why? In order to benefit others. And by the way, the greatest benefit comes to myself, but in order to benefit, primarily in order to benefit others. And why? I mean, why should we, think I want to use my life to benefit others? Main reason is because, well, there's two main reasons. But the main one is that because everything that we enjoy in this life all comes about independence upon others. From our body that came from our parents, all our food comes from other people, our clothes from other people, our shelter, all the education we receive comes about in dependence upon others. So in short, everything, that sustains just our life um, comes about from others. And then in addition to that, everything that brings us enjoyment in life comes about in dependence upon others. So as a way of repaying the kindness of others, then we should use our life to work for the welfare of others. And then the second reason is just because others are the same as us in that they want to be happy and they don't want to suffer, right? So why should our own personal happiness, wish to have happiness and wish to be free from suffering, why should we consider that more important than anyone else's, right? We're only one person on the planet. There's 7 billion other people. I think maybe almost 8 billion now. There's so many other people on the planet, right? So if and then again, and we're all interconnected and interdependent. So just thinking about our own likes and dislikes and our own needs alone is a bit narrow, right? It's limiting to ourselves, and it's also just limiting in terms of what kind of what we can do in the world, what kind of positive effect we can have in the world. Um, yeah. So, so bodhicitta is this attitude that first has a causal aspiration, of great compassion. So then, what is great compassion? Well, maybe we start. What is compassion, right? And then beyond compassion, what's great compassion? Compassion is simple, no? We can have compassion for ourselves. We can have compassion for others. It's basically compassion is a mind that observes a suffering experience and then wishes to be free from it, right? So when we observe suffering ourselves, it can be something as simple as hunger or thirst, but it can be something, of course, much more profound, like depression or anxiety or kind of existential angst or relationship problem or something. No, so in short, and then the same with regard to other. So with regard to those, someone we know, our family member, a mother, father, or friends, or strangers, or even those we tend to dislike. So we can also observe the suffering that another person experiences, and then wish for them to be free from it. So this observing the suffering of ourself, or observing the suffering of another, and then wishing that they be free from that is compassion. So, yeah, maybe before we go on, why don't we just meditate on compassion for a couple minutes to try to get some kind of taste of what that is? Yeah, and so if you want in the future, you can practice. So again, just kind of get comfortable and return just sort of awareness from listening to focusing within, and come back to your breath. Mm. So similar to what we did with loving kindness earlier, we begin by focusing on ourselves. So yeah, become just aware of some kind of suffering experience you're having either right now in the present moment or just kind of these days in your life. But don't start with the heaviest, if there's something very, very heavy happening in your life, which as soon as you start thinking about it, like that's all you're going to do is just be thinking about that. Start with something that's you can kind of work with, a small to kind of medium kind of experience of suffering or difficulty or pain you're having right now in your life. And then as you get more skilled, you address the bigger and bigger kind of issues. Yeah. So think of some kind of suffering you're experiencing these days. Mm. And then as you think of that, just with great kindness towards yourself and without having to know like how this is going to happen, just try to generate the wish, may I be free from this suffering, right? May I be free from suffering in general and especially this particular problem. So with a very kind heart, thinking of this kind of difficulty you experience, then just try to generate this attitude. May I be free from the suffering. Mm. So when that thought becomes a kind of feeling in your heart, wishing for oneself to be free from suffering, then begin expanding it out to others. So of course, others, we don't have firsthand experience of how they might suffer usually, but we can imagine, no doubt others, have problems, have different forms of, pain in the body, anguish or in the mind. So expand this kind of caring concern, imagining the suffering that others in the room here or in the environment around you, especially for those online, wherever you are. We could think geographically, expanding this kind of like ripples radiating out from a stone that's thrown into a pond, radiating out this kind of concern for others, imagining the sufferings they might experience and wishing that they be free. And if you find easier, you can focus, especially on people you know, maybe family or friends. It's definitely easier with them because we know more about their lives. So you can also bring one or two or three or more to mind, and then think of again sufferings they experience and wish for them to be free from those. And then finally, for a few moments, then try expanding this attitude out as far as you can, as wide as you can, to encompass all the humans, all the animals, whatever kinds of beings exist. Thinking, may they all be free from suffering. Mm. Okay, then relax your attention. So that's yeah, that's a little bit of taste of compassion. So the cause, so yeah, cause for bodhicitta is this is great compassion. So great compassion is where we have compassion for ourselves, not only ourselves but others, and then without discriminating between those we like or dislike, we extend this attitude of compassion to all other sentient beings without leaving out even one. Um, and without it being biased between those we like and those we dislike. So extending this attitude of compassion to all sentient beings. And then not only that, but also taking upon oneself a sense of responsibility that not only thinking it's not only, it's one thing to wish that sentient beings are free from suffering. And wishing that is very good, and it has some effect. But what can I do more concretely to actually, work for the welfare of sentient beings and bring about, bring them closer to freedom from suffering? Yeah. So it's taking on the sense of responsibility. Thinking I myself must do whatever I can, right, to free sentient beings from suffering. So that's the motivation for generating bodhicitta, is this, wish to benefit others and free them from suffering. Um, so the second aspiration, that's the causal aspiration. So the second is a companion or aspiration, or it's an aspiration that accompanies the mind of bodhicitta, and that's the aspiration to achieve full enlightenment, right? It can be a little confusing because, which I don't really want to go into, but bodhicitta is a main mind, so we can divide up our minds. Like when we observe an object, there's a main mind observing that. Like say the flowers here. When we look at the flowers, like there's with our eye consciousness, there's a main mind observing the flowers, and then there's, other functions of the mind that accompany that. Some like might feel good about seeing the flowers, or some might, you know, kind of be repulsed or feel like bored and kind of want to go look at something else instead, or some might discriminate, oh, this is a flower. So there's different activities of the mind that go along with just observing the flowers. So similarly with bodhicitta, it's a mind observing full enlightenment. And then accompanying that is a wish to achieve that, right? Is an aspiration for that. That's all that means. The companion aspiration for enlightenment. Mm. And then we come to the actual definition of bodhicitta. So here, yeah, the definition is, so there's quite a few parts to the definition. It's a bit technical, no? Um, I mean, bodhicitta in Buddhism, like this is not an intro to Buddhism topic, right? Within Buddhism, this is kind of an advanced topic. Um, yeah, but and because there's a lot of background understanding that really fills in the picture of why this is kind of an attitude that, could actually be useful and helpful for us. That makes it much more sort of rich. But this is basically this module is kind of it's the 10th module, right, in a whole series. So yeah, it's kind of assumed that there's some background understanding. But whatever questions you have, I'll be happy to help fill in whatever way you're kind of interested. But let's look at the definition first, and then I'll see if you have any questions. Uh, what's going on? I think the Zoom room disintegrated. Did it? There we go. Okay. Yeah. So the definition of bodhicitta is a special great vehicle main mental cognizer. So what I was saying, it's a main mind. That's what I was just talking about. Main mental cognizer is the same. It just observes one's own future enlightenment, right? So what one's own bodhicitta observes is one's own future and potential enlightenment. Yeah, one's own potential enlightenment in the future. So a great vehicle main mental cognizer in the class of paths that are an entrance to the great vehicle path. So it means, bodhicitta is a type of mind that when we generate bodhicitta, um, uh, generate, uncontrived bodhicittas more properly, means when we become so habituated to this attitude, thinking, may I achieve enlightenment in order to be of the greatest possible benefit to all sentient beings, to all beings, right? And we become so habituated to that attitude that it arises continuously in regard to whatever experience we have or whatever we encounter in life. It becomes fuel to increase and to support and sustain that attitude. And then attitude arises spontaneously. We don't have to make effort to generate it. At first, like now, we have to put effort and we kind of contrive that attitude. And then when we stop making effort, it goes away and we forget about it until we meditate on it again. But when we become so habituated to it that it's like second nature, that attitude arises continuously. In the way, in a similar way that if someone very close to us dies, then we have grief, and we don't have to make effort to have grief. That grief is just there in our mind all the time, whatever we're doing, right? Because we're so deeply affected by the death of that friend or family member. So it's kind of similar to that. It's like bodhicitta, we become so habituated to the attitude that some sense of that wish to become enlightened in order to benefit all beings is always in the mind, whatever we're doing. Um, so when we generate it to that point, then yeah, then we at that's the point when you enter the Mahayana path, right? So basically, it means it's the mark of like kind of becoming a serious practitioner that's coming closer to enlightenment. I mean, before that, we can put a lot of time and energy, but our mind hasn't really transformed in a fundamental way so that we're on like a path. Yeah. So bodhicitta, a special great vehicle main mental cognizer in the class of paths that are an entrance to the great vehicle path that arises in conjunction with its companion, an aspiration yearning to achieve full enlightenment, to achieve the welfare of others. Mm, yeah, I know that's probably yeah, a bit intractable for many of you, that definition. Yeah, and I don't think it'll be particularly helpful if I go through and explain each part because it just goes into a lot of issues that also you won't really have the background for. But in sum, though, and maybe this is where I'll just explain this again and then, um, yeah, maybe explain one or two other things. Yeah, we'll look at this too, and then open the floor for questions. So, yeah, in sum, the bodhicitta is this: we're removed by compassion. We ourselves, usually, before we're really deeply moved by compassion for others, we have to have some quite suffering experience ourselves. No, if everything's just gone really well in our life, and we haven't particularly had any painful, suffering experience, and we haven't been near other people who, sometimes you can be. I was just speaking to a man the other day who grew up. He had a childhood companion childhood friend who developed muscular dystrophy, and then that was his main playmate growing up, was this other child who had, was quite severely handicapped. But it seems like, and he's a very compassionate man, no? So it seems like by having that experience of being around, and being friends with someone else who had, quite a severe disability, that really engendered compassion. So but I think that definitely opens our heart up when we ourselves deeply suffer, or around and someone we care about deeply suffers, and then we know what tragedy and pain is like in life, and then the heart opens to caring about others, realizing that so often others suffer in a way that we have no idea, we don't know, no. Um, so yeah, compelled by this genuine compassion for others that extends to all, universally, and without, what to say, condition, unconditional. And then also, yeah, and then also, I mean, this is a bit the difficult part. I mean, that might seem difficult, but it's also difficult to, yeah, to believe that we have the potential for full enlightenment, right? So that's a long, and maybe just to touch on a little bit of what the Buddhist thinking is, like why it's asserted that we have the potential for enlightenment. In short, because the nature of the mind, our mind is like a mirror or like water, right? Like a mirror, anything that appears in a mirror, any reflection that appears in a mirror, it's not part of the mirror. It's just it's appearing there temporarily. Or any pollutant, any pollution or contamination that's in water, it's never of the nature of water. It can always be separated out. So like that, any disturbing emotion, anger, attachment, low self-esteem, fear, confusion, any disturbing emotion or thoughts that arise in our mind, they're never of the nature of our mind, right? Our mind is more just like the space in which they arise. And so any disturbing thought or emotion or anything that limits our ability to care about others or limits our wisdom to know things as they are, to know the truth, is adventitious. Those limitations and those disturbing attitudes or emotions all arise through temporary causes and conditions, which can be eliminated. And when those causes and conditions go away, then also those disturbing emotions go away. But just the clear, luminous quality of mind remains indefinitely. So that nature of the mind also explains why the Buddhists assert that there's past and future lives. So we don't, even though we don't see we're making much progress in this life, we have many lives to keep working on it, right? So then enlightenment becomes, okay, a bit more possible. But also because everything that clouds and obscures um, our ability to know and our ability to care about others, have pure love and pure compassion, is kind of adventitious. It's not of the nature of the mind, so it can be separated out, just like water can be purified no matter how contaminated it is. So that also then is another reason why it's possible to achieve enlightenment. But there's many different angles of reasoning, many different lines of reasoning. And this is, one of the most, for those who are intelligent, have sharper faculties or are more kind of demanding and skeptical and critical, then before they'll generate this attitude of bodhicitta, they first want to know, is that even possible? Is that realistic or not? So they want to they'll go through all these different reasonings to see if it's true or not. And then only when they feel confident that yes, it's actually possible to achieve full enlightenment, then they generate that aspiration. So in short, bodhicitta is, the aspiration compelled by compassion, wishing to free oneself and all others from suffering, then one aspires to achieve full enlightenment. Um, yeah, and then just to kind of summarize that and to contribute to what I was saying about the difference between contrived, where we have to make effort in generating the attitude, to uncontrived bodhicitta, where we're so habituated to that attitude that it arises continuously. There's this quotation by one recent Buddhist master. This is the sort of the definition of having generated actual bodhicitta. He says, in short, if like a mother whose cherished child has fallen into a pit of fire, and who experiences even 1 second of his suffering as an unbearable eternity, right? So think about a mother cares about their child so much that whatever, even a small headache or hunger, cough or cold the child has, it's like the mother, because of that deep caring about the child, then they feel it as if it's their own. They have the very visceral empathy and deep caring about the child. So in short, if like the mother whose cherished child has fallen into a pit of fire. So can you imagine? I mean, child falls into a pit of fire. It's excruciatingly painful just to see that. And who experiences even 1 second of his suffering as an unbearable eternity. Your reflection. So when our reflection on the suffering of all mother sentient beings, right? So of all the humans, all the animals, all sentient beings, who've been kind to us in countless ways, just like our mother of this life. So your reflection on the suffering of all mother sentient beings has made it impossible for you to bear their suffering for even 1 second, right? So if we think for a moment, the suffering of all different people all over the world, just human beings are experiencing, it is unbearable, right? In a way, you think of all the people in Palestine, in the war, caught in the war there, and Middle East, and then Ukraine, and then other countries where there's so much violence, and other countries where there's famine, natural disaster, the heat wave in Europe now, people who've just lost their loved ones recently. So many different kinds of suffering. Right? We think about it all. If we care about all those, then yeah, it can be overwhelming. So it has made it impossible for you to bear their suffering for even 1 second. And the wish seeking enlightenment for their sake arises without effort, right? So it becomes effort. It arises spontaneously. Then you have realized the supreme precious mind of enlightenment. Yeah. Okay. So any questions at this point? Oh yeah. I'll stop sharing and yes. How do you say your name?
Lodan.
Ladon.
Lodan.
Okay.
Thank you, Geshe. I have a concern about when we say, like, imagine it's bodhicitta has somehow to arise, like we don't have to force it, we cannot force it. But how about when, for example, we try, because we know that bodhicitta is very important in the Buddhism, and we want to have that, we want to cultivate that. And we are in our day-to-day life, our karma shows us that there's war, there's maybe war in our homeland, and there's somebody, there's never somebody who make this war. There's cause and condition, but when we are watching all the news and everything, this bodhicitta is really very weak. And I wanted to know, because I try to say, no, it's not only this person. There is no like one evil person, because if they are bad, they have cause and condition. Maybe our people had this cause and condition in their karma, and they gave birth to this evil person that make them like suffer. But sometimes I wanted to know if we can like distance ourselves from everything is happening all around the world, that which in my case concern me, because I'm from Iran. I'm seeing all the stuff in there. So I said, no, it's not. Is it like kind of bypassing my, like a spiritual life, and bypassing something that is very, very strong, maybe since I'm very young, I don't know. Uh, or I need to like be gentle with this negative emotion and say, well, if you think this like this, you just accept this in this moment. You don't have like any bodhicitta, even baby bodhicitta. Or I need to distance myself.
Huh. That's a difficult question. Um, Let me just make sure I'm on the same page as you, though, right? Because you said a
Mhm.
lot of things. Um, but I see, yeah, you see all these terrible things happening in the world, and I mean, it is caused by people, right? Groups of people, largely, and
Yeah.
individual people. It's not nobody. There's people acting, and karma is also involved. That brings a whole
Mhm.
nother layer of, a
Mhm.
dynamic to it. Um, and then hold on, and then you're thinking about this attitude of bodhicitta.
Yeah.
And I think what I understand you to say is you kind of feel like, yeah, there's just too much like terrible things going on in the world. I can't be bothered so much about it because if I care too much, it's just kind of break my heart. So I'll kind of step back and try to focus on bodhicitta. Like, is
Yeah.
that okay? Is
It's
kind of
kind,
what you're
yeah,
saying?
yeah, it's kind of, yeah, it's the way I think. If it's my distant with bodhicitta, is it real? Is it something that uh
Oh, your attitude, your effort to generate some bodhicitta, is that
is it
real?
fake? Yeah, is it fake sometimes when it gets harder and I'm
Oh,
listening
yeah.
to news and I say, oh,
Yeah.
it's horrible. These people
Yeah.
should not. But
Well, I don't think. I mean, that's a good question we have to ask ourselves. Is it fake? Am I faking it? Or, I mean, there is a degree of you have to fake it till you make it. No, there is a degree of that. I mean, that's
mhm,
not wrong. But we do. I mean, whatever attitude, positive attitude we're trying to generate, we do want it to be as genuine as possible, not just faking it, right?
mhm,
But even, like I think you were here from the beginning when we meditate on loving kindness and compassion. I mean, even you meditate on loving kindness a bit, like, yeah, when you start off, it's not like, loving kindness is just kind of flowing out of your heart. It's like you have to sit there and make some effort and think, okay, may I be, well, it helps even just to start with the thought, start with the words, which is not particularly a feeling thing. May I be well, may I be happy. But then if you make some effort at it, you can generate a genuine feeling, that really this is not just words, it's something I genuinely want, I feel.
Yes.
Um, so with bodhicitta, it's also like that, and but it's much more difficult because bodhicitta is a much more dynamic and kind of complex attitude. It has many different parts, right? One because, and also, I mean, and one of the most difficult is because our idea of what enlightenment is not easy, right? Just thinking, may I be happy is relatively easy. May I become enlightened is like, well, then what is enlightenment? So that requires some reflection now to fill in that picture. But more importantly, I think for your question is, well, how does this relate to, our experience of so many terrible things happening in the world?
Yes.
Um, no, I mean, it helps. I mean, definitely, I think to bring in bodhicitta, this Buddhist attitude to thinking about things in the world, it definitely helps to think about things in a more humane way. Like then, because, we mostly hear about things happening in the world through the news, right? The news
Yeah.
media or even social media. But each of those, they have their own kind of way of spinning everything,
Yeah.
their own view of
Exactly.
what the world is
Yeah.
like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes that's very cynical and it's always just confined to one life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not really an idea that the human potential is anything great. I mean, in the background of all that is the materialistic worldview that human beings are basically just kind of physical things that are lucky to have a sophisticated brain, and so they have sophisticated thoughts and emotions, and they do kind of a lot of complicated stuff, but it's not particularly meaningful in the end, or it's not sure, right? We try to, of course, try to find meaning in everything, even within that worldview. Um, but I find, just before bodhicitta, just the Buddhist view that every sentient being, I mean, and this is not uncommon to Buddhism, it's common to most world religions, and a common view that, that all these events are being experienced by sentient beings who are just like me, and that they want to be happy, they want to be free from suffering. No? I just think if more people had that view, there would be sincerely cultivated that view, there would be a lot less harm done, right, in the world. Um, and so, and then so remembering that, it's helpful to think that, okay, I can maybe write to my government, my representative in the government, congressman or whatever. Yes, maybe that'll help. Definitely, who we elect, who we vote for makes a difference. But but that's all still a bit removed, right? And not particularly satisfying. What can we do in my daily life to try to bring more peace and kindness into the world, right? And so when we meditate on loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and then in our home, and then we meet other people in our family, in our neighborhood, in our community, that has an effect, no? That has a very real effect. And so I think in that way, it can help to feel like we're doing something, no? Um, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Hmm. Sure. Any questions from you all here in at the land of medicine Buddha? No.
Hello. Quick question. I also feel very strange sometimes that I feel sometimes more compassion towards roadkill when I'm driving past
Mm,
versus, again, come back to the news and I'm thinking about why is that like this? Is it isn't it strange that there is like war and famine is more suffering and it seems I cannot reach to that level of compassionate towards those like victims of those crimes versus like as I say the roadkill passing by
mm.
some you know creature. Is it because those emotions and feelings are way deep, Or is it because they're like further away from me versus I see suffering right now on the road, you know?
Mhm.
Do you understand what I say?
I do, yeah, yeah, I understand your question, but it's a very personal question. I mean, why, why do I feel that way? And about anything that we feel, like when we ask why I feel that way, we're the ones who are most, well positioned to answer that, right? But I mean, because generally I understand the question, and I think it's a common phenomena. Oftentimes, when I see people like walking their pets or taking care of the pets, like here, compared to India, where I know I've been living for a long time, where pets is not really a big thing. Here in the US, it's like so many people have pets and they, spend so much time and attention taking care of their pets, which is a good thing. But sometimes you wonder, some people, you get a sense that they're much more comfortable with their animal than with any human, right? I think that's true for, quite a few people. I mean, and with good reason, because especially dogs, like they're so loyal that you give them some food and take care of them and then just love you, no? So, yeah, whereas you try to find a partner like that, like almost impossible, right? Um, People are, they have much more needs than animals, and they're much more complex, right? So just, I mean, the like companionship we have with the animal, it's just such a simple thing. I mean, cats are a bit more complex than dogs, right? But yeah, we spent lunch at
Yeah.
talking about cats with one very complex cat that lives at Rajapani Institute. Um, who doesn't easily like people. But but many animals, it's easier to have, and so because it's kind of like a child. If you see a child being harmed, it's much easier to generate compassion than an adult because there's an idea that they're simple, they're innocent. So we have that kind of view of animals also. They're simple, they're innocent. So when you see them harmed, it's easy to generate compassion. Whereas when we see adults who are being harmed, automatically it's just kind of the idea that, oh, well, there's a bit complicated story there. I'm not really sure what's going on. So it's not as easy to have empathy, right away. Because adults, yeah, with different kinds of adults, because we have different sort of storylines that come up in our minds and related to. But that's where I think again, it helps to simplify the way we observe others by remembering this again and again that others are fundamentally the same as me in that they want to be happy. Their idea of what is going to bring them happiness and what happiness is might be radically different, but every creature has a fundamental drive to survive, which is a kind of happiness, just surviving. To be free from being harmed physically or mentally is another kind of aspect of that survival instinct. And just like we have, like when we're harmed, we don't like it. Others are the same. When we are, we have sustenance, we have food and drink and shelter and kind of comfort, and we feel safe from being harmed, we feel safety, and we have companionship, then we're happy. Then others are the same. No matter which side of a conflict they are, which side of the political spectrum they're on, if we can remind ourselves of that universal humanity, right, that we share with other human beings, other animals, then that can help. When we see others, to switch into the remembrance of that can help feel more connected to them and feel more empathy, compassion. Mm. Yeah. Just any other questions right off? Otherwise,
I just have one question, Geshe.
sure.
Um, how do you develop compassion without getting too attached? And how do you make sure that as you develop compassion and you feel intense pain for any other being, how do you step away and not become so attached that you also expect something from them as a result of your compassion? And that is a danger that I often find myself trapped in.
Hmm.
And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Here, I think the main thing is we have to check. When we have compassion for others, we're trying to generate compassion for others, or we see others suffering and we feel compassion for them. It's just like with love. You know, we like others, we care about someone else, we feel, you know, deeply care about them. Whether it's, you know, romantic love or just, you know, with a family member, you know, a mother or father or sibling or partner. Well, partner is romantic, right? But that it easily, yeah, I mean, there can be pure love, but then love more easily than compassion gets mixed up with attachment. So then how do you distinguish when it's mixed up with attachment? Well, attachment, and here I'm not talking about like in Western psychology, this sort of the bond between a parent and child is attachment. That's not what I'm talking about. There's a Buddhist idea of attachment where we see something as attractive and we wish to enjoy it, we wish to possess it. And we exaggerate the attractiveness, exaggerate the ability of that object to please us and bring us happiness, and then we crave it, right? That's what we're talking about, attachment. So the attachment is always, fundamentally, it's a selfish concern. I want something. I see that as attractive. It's going to make me happy, therefore I want it, right? So pure love is not selfish at all. It's totally altruistic concern. I want this person to be well and happy. And I'm not expecting anything in return, unconditional love. I'm not expecting anything in return. So it's the same with compassion. When we genuinely, you know, we see another person suffering, we care about them, we want them to be free from it, and we even try to help them, no? If it's, I mean, yes, it easily gets mixed up with attachment because we easily want something, especially the more we're putting ourselves out, then the more we feel like entitled to some return, right? But then that's not pure concern for others anymore. That's becoming mixed with selfish concern. And our ego is so tricky, no? It's always hijacking everything we do to make it like a selfish trip, to try to get something for ourselves. And that we're just habituated to that. So we also have to be compassionate with ourselves when we see ourselves doing that. But to keep our intention pure, we have to check again and again. Am I genuinely being concerned about this person? Or is it somehow in some kind of backdoor way, I'm trying to get something for myself? And then just being aware of that helps to, and seeing that as a problem, as a fault, helps to let go and reduce that selfish concern, and then, you know, refocus our energy more into genuinely, you know, wishing to, you know, do something to relieve the suffering of the others, of other, right? But in short, we have to check again and again for this selfish element that comes up. Okay. Well, shall we meditate a little bit now before we stop? We just have 15 minutes left. Have a drink first if you need, or wiggle around a bit, get comfortable and ready to sit still for another 10 minutes. Stand up if you like for a minute or two. Mm. You know, before we meditate, I think, because have some really nice verses on the benefits of bodhicitta. So I'll just read a few. This is a list of the benefits, but that's a bit boring. So, yeah, I'll just read these verses by Nagarjuna. Yeah. So Nagarjuna is a great Indian Buddhist saint who lived in about the, about the 1st century BC, CE. So he says, the single taste of compassion is merit. The taste of emptiness is most excellent. Those who drink the elixir of emptiness to realize self and others' welfare are conquerors' children. So conquerors' children means those who've generated bodhicitta. And they're called conquerors' children because once one generates the attitude of bodhicitta, then one is on the quick track to become enlightened, in short. Just like a child of a king is they're close to becoming the king or queen of the country. Bow to them with your entire being. They are always worthy of honor in the three worlds. These guides of the world reside as representatives of the Buddha. This awakening mind, or bodhicitta, is stated to be the highest idea in the great vehicle. So with an absorbed, determined effort, generate this awakening mind. To accomplish self and others' welfare, no other means exist in the world apart from the awakening mind. To date, the Buddhas saw no other means. And there what he means is that, we might think, oh, but there are many other means to accomplish others' welfare. You can practice medicine, you can, be a doctor, a nurse, a teacher, a good parent, work for a charitable organization. But the thinking is that, like, yes, those things are all helpful and very good, but they're all like band-aids, basically. They're temporary ways of benefiting sentient beings that they'll doing, as well as we might practice medicine, or as good as an educator we might be, or a good parent, or as effective work we might do in a charitable organization, that, we're relieving a sickness, hunger, thirst, temporary sadness. But as long as we don't identify and then uproot the fundamental causes of suffering, then we won't really be able to free sentient beings from suffering. Yeah, and so that's why bodhicitta and striving and becoming enlightened is seen as the best way to benefit others. Although it's a very long-term thing, right? You can do the other things in the meantime. The merit that is obtained from mere generation of awakening mind, if it were to assume a form, it will fill more than the expanse of space. A person who for an instant meditates on the awakening mind, the heap of merit obtained from this, not even the conquerors or the Buddhas can measure. A precious mind that is free of afflictions, this is the most unique and excellent jewel. It can be neither harmed nor stolen by such robbers as the Mara of the afflictions. Just as aspirations of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas are unswerving, likewise those who immerse themselves in awakening mind must hold firm their thought. Even with wonder, you should strive, as explained here in the preceding lines. Thereafter, you will yourself realize Samantabhadra's great enlightened deeds. So in short, you yourself will become a Buddha. Okay, so let's meditate now for a little bit. So gradually, so get comfortable, gather your awareness within. And again, initially focus on your breath for a minute or so. And just let your mind go blank and observe your breath. Mm. So then let's reflect in the few minutes we have on the question of what is for oneself, what what's one's own sense of or idea of one's own highest potential, right? Because this is a big issue in thinking about bodhicitta, because bodhicitta is this aspiration to achieve full enlightenment. This Buddhist idea of what's the highest potential that a person can achieve, the full development of wisdom, compassion, all other positive qualities in the elimination of faults. But we have to check for ourselves. What's my own idea of what is my highest potential? And not just, I mean, if one thinks that this life, from this birth until death, is all that exists, then within that, what's my highest potential as a person to develop in a positive way and to reduce and eliminate, faulty behavior of body, speech, and especially aspects of the mind um, that lead to suffering for myself and others, versus positive um, actions of body, speech, and mind that lead to, and qualities, more like qualities of body, speech, and mind that lead to a well-being and happiness, contribute to well-being and happiness for myself and others. So yeah, what is one's own sense of the potential of oneself as a person, either just within this one life, if that's all one believes in, or beyond this life, if one believes in rebirth and future lives exist, or some kind of existence after death. And then, so what is one's own sense of the highest potential for a person, especially for oneself? And then why? What are the reasons that you have for believing that? So let's reflect on that for, say, 5 minutes. Then relax your attention. And we'll dedicate. Sure. Okay. Yeah, so we'll dedicate with this prayer to generate bodhicitta. So think whatever positive energy we've created in this session and rejoice. Think how excellent it is. We've made, put forth some effort to meditate and reflect and discuss the aspiration of bodhicitta. Yeah, we meditate a little bit on loving kindness, a little bit on compassion, and then reflected a bit on what our own idea of our own highest potential is. Yeah. So to whatever degree we generate a mind with kindness, caring about others, and especially the further we can extend it to more sentient beings, caring about others infinitely, then, it's incredibly virtuous. We create incredible virtue just generating that attitude. It leads to so much benefit. No? So, yeah, we can rejoice in that. And then rejoice in all the good things that people do throughout the world, in the past as in the present. So often we think about all the harmful things people do in the world, but it really is helpful to think about some of the good things people do in the world again and again. So all this positive energy we dedicate with these prayers. May the precious supreme Bodhicitta, not yet born, arise. May that not arisen, not decline, but increase more and more. And then, there's these dedication verses by Shantideva. Let's read these. May the blind see forms, may the deaf hear sounds, may the naked find clothing. The hungry find food, may the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments, and may every disease in the world never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting one another. May no living creature ever suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled, or their minds ever be depressed. If in those who encounter me a faithful or an angry thought arises, may that eternally become the source for fulfilling all their wishes. May all those who say bad things to me or cause me any other harm, and those who mock and insult me have the fortune to fully awaken. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world, until everyone is healed. May a rain of food and drink descend to clear away the pain of thirst and hunger, and during the eon of famine, may I myself change into food and drink. May I become an inexhaustible treasure for those who are poor and destitute. May I turn into all things they could need, and may these be placed close beside them. May I be a protector for those without one, a guide for all travelers on the way. May I be a bridge, a boat, and a ship for all who wish to cross the ocean. May I be an island for those who seek one, and a lamp for those desiring light. May I be a bed for all who wish to rest, and a servant for all who want a servant. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, for as long as space remains and for as long as sentient beings remain. Until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Okay, thank you all.